After I had my third child, my husband and we decided I should stay home for a little bit and take care of the kids. It was going to be cheaper. We didn't have to pay for daycare. Me staying home with the kids, they're all 5 years apart. We had a fifth grader and a kindergartner and then a newborn. So we're like, I'll just stay home for a while. We decided that I would stay home. And I would say right when she turned 2, is when I started noticing that she would see things or would see somebody. Our very first house that we bought together when we got married, we were starting to live in a bad neighborhood, so we decided to move. Well, it was during a time too that only he was working, so it was tough. So my father-in-law was like, oh, hey, you guys can stay in our house because we're building a new house. Why don't you rent it out from us? It's a win-win. So we decided we would. They never had any issues. And she was young, and we were getting ready to leave to pick up her 2 sisters from school. And I usually always made a little snack for her because I coached basketball, I coached volleyball. So after school, we would just have practice right away. So I'd have like snacks for the kids, get her like books, just pack up things, get it ready. And one day, out of nowhere, I never had any problem with it before, like ever thought anything. She was just like smiling and like laughing and giggling, and I look up because we were like on a split level. So like the top was the living room and on the bottom part was the kitchen. And there was like a little window for the kitchen so I could look up. And I look up and she's just looking in the corner and like smiling and laughing and waving. And I was just like, oh, I wonder who she's waving to. And I like looked up there and I was like, it must just be a relative saying hi or something, like wanted to visit her because she was newer and everything that we went through. And didn't think anything of it. It continued to be like that, like almost every other day. Finally, one day I picked her up and we're getting ready to leave. I put on like her snowsuit. It was like the winter time. I put on her snowsuit and I put on her hat, and she starts waving like really hardcore up the step. And I look and I see nothing. And I was just like, I didn't acknowledge it. I didn't say anything. And she's really little. She was only 2, so she couldn't verbalize anything. And I just left, got in the van, and later on I called my sister and she's like, what? No way. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, she was happy. Maybe it's someone in our family, or maybe it was her great grandma. I was like, she's not crying, so I'll just leave it be. So then a year goes by and we ended up finding a really nice rental in Robbinsdale, Minnesota. We felt safe. It was a safe neighborhood. And I would say within 4 months of living there, my little one would tell me, she would say, Mommy, that little girl. And I was like, oh yeah, you're a little girl. No, that little girl. And I was like, I really didn't understand what she was saying because she was still pretty little. And a year goes by, she turns 3. And one night she was asleep. Her and her sister had shared a room together, and we had bunk beds for them. So we had 3 bedrooms on the main level, and it was a rambler. So her and her sister slept in their bedroom together, and her older sister slept on the top bunk. She slept on the bottom bunk. It must have been, where it's just about to get light out for morning. So around that time, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I can hear her screaming, and I heard these little footsteps just run into the bedroom. And I look up and I see her, and she's like, Mommy, that little girl is poking me. And I go, what? And I go, oh, you're your sister? And she goes, that little girl, look, she's by the door. And then for some reason, I did not want to look. I felt something, but I didn't see anything. I was looking at her, and I wake up her dad, and I'm like, hey, she's awake, she's crying. And he just looks, oh, maybe she was watching something scary. And she still kept crying. She's, look, the little girl's by the door. She's poking her head around the door. Him and I both did not look. We were just dead looking at her, dead smack, looking in her eyes, trying to get her to calm down. I don't know why we both didn't look. I think maybe we were afraid we would see something. But we didn't. We didn't look. And then I just said, it's time to go to bed. It's okay. You'll be with mom and dad. You can sleep with us tonight. And she goes, no, mommy, look it. She has that scary face. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, mommy, look, she's at the door. Look. Finally, instead of looking, I said, that little girl needs to go. You need to sleep. She's not allowed to come into our room, and she's not allowed to wake you up. She needs to go. So you need to tell her she needs to go. And she was like frightened, like she was shaking. We somehow, within a few minutes, go to sleep. I didn't think anything of it. I didn't ask any of the other kids. A few days go by, and my sister comes to me, and she told me about this little girl that keeps waking her up at night. And I go, yeah, she woke up like screaming, crying. And I said, I don't know if she was dreaming or what was going on, but she told me she saw a little girl and that she was poking her like really hard to wake her up. And I said, maybe I'll talk to her about it, because maybe she was dreaming and I didn't want to dismiss it. I didn't want her to feel like I didn't care. So I got up the courage to say, hey, honey, when you told me that little girl was down or like bothering you to wake you up, what did you mean? She goes, oh, there's this little girl in the house. And she always wants me to play with her downstairs. And she goes, I don't want to play with her downstairs. But for a while there, she would go downstairs and play by herself. And I always wondered like why she was doing that. And I was like, They have these American Girl doll playhouses, and they'd go down there. They play with they had the laundry set, the horse, and they would brush the doll's hair. So I kind of understood, but for her to be so young and go downstairs by herself, I was, it doesn't bother her. I'd do laundry, and I'd go upstairs, and I'd be like, are you okay, honey? I'm fine, I'm playing. So I didn't really think too much of it. And I said, where does that little girl live? And she goes, she lived here. But she sometimes has a really scary face. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, she has really dark eyes sometimes. And she said her face is really light and I can see through her face. But sometimes when she comes really close to me, she has dark eyes and it scares me. And I told her that it scares me. And I was like, okay. I said, if you see that little girl again, you need to tell her that she just has to leave you alone, that she's not allowed to wake you up, that your mommy said to not wake you up, that you're supposed to be asleep, and she's not allowed to come in the room. And she said, okay, and just kind of like dismissed it. Well, some time had went by, and I want to say it might have even been like a month or 2 months went by. And in the middle of the night, again, it was actually dark. It wasn't like the time where it was becoming morning. I hear her screaming, mommy, mommy, help me. And I wake up and, you hear the mommy, mommy, help me. In the middle of the night from your kid, my heart was beating super fast. I was like, I woke up in this like, where's my baby? And I run into her bedroom as fast as I can. But we like met each other. She was running too. And I go, honey, what's wrong? And she was crying, the type of crying where, when you cry too hard, you're like, like you can't catch your breath. She goes, mommy, that little girl poked me so hard. It woke me up. and she was poking me in my shoulder. And when I turned to her and I told her to leave me alone, she did that scary face. And she said, I start screaming for you. And she kept telling me and shaking her head, telling me no. And I sat there and I looked in the bedroom. I turned on the lights and she goes, and a grandma came in. I go, a grandma? What do you mean? She goes, a grandma came in, but I couldn't hear what she said, but she was talking to the little girl and pointing at her to leave. And I said, what did the grandma look like? Did she smile at you? Was she scary? Was she happy? I was so nervous that she was so scared. You feel so bad because you can't do anything about it. And I wanted to cry, but I was trying to be strong. And at the same time, I was scared. And at the same time, I wanted to wake up her dad, but he always dismissed it. Oh, you watch something scary. Oh, she has an imaginary friend. She's only about to be 4 years old. It's not that big of a deal. It was crazy that she said there was a grandma that came into the bedroom and she looked like my auntie. And she told the little girl to leave. With her hand. She said she couldn't hear her say anything, but she was telling her to leave and the girl had left. And that's when I got up. I thought about it and I said, that looks like your aunt, your great grandma. So my great grandma looks exactly like my sister. And they had the auburn hair, they're light skin toned, the whole facial features, they have more of a rounder head and we have more of the oval head. So it was I wanted to find a picture of her, but I knew my mom and dad were the only ones that had a picture of her. But it was when she was a little bit older. So I had called my mom and dad and I told them about what was happening. And they said, well, you should call your uncle and see if maybe he can do something because she keeps seeing this little girl and it's obviously scaring her. And we believe her and we trust that she's seen something. And I eventually go to my parents' house. I find a picture of my great grandma and I show it to her and I said, is this the grandma that you seen? Is this the grandma that you seen come into the bedroom? She goes, yes, that's the grandma that looks like auntie. And from then on, I was like, okay, she legit can see people. I trust everything that she says. From then on, I let her sleep in the bedroom with me because I really, truly felt like she was terrified. The way she talked to me the last time, where she was shivering, I felt so bad and she was so little. And my other two kids never said they seen anything, never heard anything. So I was worried that somebody was bothering her. And I didn't call my uncle yet. After a while, after some time had went by, and she was next to me almost every night, I felt better because I didn't see anything and I didn't hear anything. Well, the year goes by and our landlord had told us hey, we want to sell the house. We thought we'd give you a heads up. We'll give you 6 months. So we ended up moving. We bought a house in Minneapolis and it was it was a much older house than the house in Robbinsdale. And it was nice and big. So we were pretty excited. We have 3 kids. We have a bigger house. We have more room. We have an upstairs. And we totally fell in love with it. The location was great. It was on the better side of Minneapolis, and it was still close to the kids' school. I would say immediately I started hearing something. So we visited the house before we had closed on it. And I didn't have a bad feeling. I usually get a vibe or a certain kind of energy from places or people. I feel it right away. And I didn't get a bad vibe from the house. We had went downstairs And him and I were excited, like, oh, we finally found our house. What are we going to do? Let's start upstairs. Let's start with the kids' room. All of a sudden, I had heard a door shut. And I was like, did you hear that? And he was like, no, I didn't hear that. And I went upstairs. I didn't see no door shut. So I was like, it was just me. I was just maybe hearing things or maybe heard something outside, because in Minneapolis, the houses are, closer together. And you have an alley. In Robbinsdale, we didn't really have an alley. And in the house that we had before, there was no alley. It was just a drive up. Like, you have a little driveway and it goes right to the garage. So I was like, maybe I just heard like a car door. So we buy the house. We move in. Within a month, so you could never like sneak around. You could never like tiptoe around. It just always creaked. That night we went to bed pretty late. And I was just about to be in like my final sleep. And I heard somebody walking around. And I like got up and I was like, maybe it's one of the kids. But then I realized it was like boots. Like I could hear big thump boots, boom. And I was like, oh, someone broke into the house. So I turn to the side and I wake up my husband. I go, you need to wake up. There's somebody in the house. And he like sat up and he had that look like, yeah. And he started listening. And he goes, oh, go by the kids. He heard. I go, you hear that? He goes, I hear it. And we could hear it throughout the living room. And when I was listening, I didn't hear the floor creaking. I just heard boots. So I thought it was really weird. So he gets up, he goes by the door and he flicks on the light really fast. And so there was 2 bedrooms on the floor with a bathroom. And then you go upstairs and our oldest daughter was upstairs. And in the hallway, there was a light. He flicked on the light. He ran out to the hallway, flicked that on, and all of a sudden he turned. And he turned like as if he seen somebody. Like he went on the side of the wall and he turned like he didn't want someone to see him. And I thought for sure someone was in the house. And then all of a sudden he turned back around. And if you take a left, it's the kitchen. And if you take a right, it's the bathroom. And he turned and he took a left and he started flicking on all the lights in the house. And he goes, we need to turn all the lights on and we need to check the house, make sure no one's in here. And I was like, okay. I was like, did you see something? Immediately it was a no. We searched the whole house, like every crack, crevice in the house that there was. We didn't see anything. He didn't say anything. I said, you heard that, right? You heard that. And he was like, I heard it. I don't know. Maybe it was this. Maybe it was that. He like had an excuse. And I was like, maybe we're just imagining it. And he's, oh, I don't know. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Wake up. We have coffee. And I go, wasn't that weird last night? Didn't it sound like boots? And he goes, I didn't want to mention it to you right away. Because I was creeped out. But he's like, I thought I saw like a man in the kitchen when I turned to look. And I go, what? And I go, why didn't you tell me last night? And he says, I was a little scared because it disappeared. And he goes, I thought maybe it was from me turning on the lights that it was making a shadow. And then I thought about it. He kept turning the lights on and on after that and would look to the side and back into the kitchen. And then he'd turn off the light and then he'd look. He was trying to see if it made a shadow. And he said, I heard the boots, but I don't know. Maybe we don't have to worry about anything. Maybe it was just like, maybe it was nothing. And I was like, you heard it and I heard it. And maybe it's something. And we just dismissed it. So he didn't want to get too specific, and he never really did. All he described is that he knew it was like a silhouette of a man, a taller man. he asked if I seen anything, and I said no. All I did was hear the boots. And he was like, I want to learn about the house. And so he got into that, researching like about the house, if anyone had passed away in it, how many homeowners they had. And the homeowners that we bought it from, they bought it from the original homeowner. So after that time, and after he talked to me about it, I just left it be. And I was like, if there's someone in the house, maybe since we just got the house, maybe he was giving us like a blessing. And a nice family moved in here. I can leave now. But little did I know, my little one was seeing the guy that her dad had seen. So not too long after that, she came to me and she goes, Mom, there's this really tall man that walks around the house and he has really loud boots. And I go, because I knew what I heard and I knew what her dad had heard. And she said, I just wanted you to know that he walks around the house and he checks on everything. And I go, how do you know this? She goes, I see him. I see him do it all the time. And I said, do you ever talk to him or does he talk to you? And she said, no, he just checks the house, but he's really tall. And I was like, okay. And then from her experience before, I said, does he scare you? She said, no, I'm not scared of him. And I said, okay. And she goes, what does scare me, Mom? And I was like, what? She said, that little girl that's here again. And I go, oh. And I said, did that little girl come from the house that we were in before? And she said, yes. And she told me, she goes, Mom, that little girl has really old pajamas. She wears pajamas all the time. I wonder why she likes to wear pajamas. And I was like, I'm not sure. I said, what do you mean by old pajamas? They look dirty, or they're like, what do you mean by old? And she goes, like how kids wore pajamas in the olden days. I go, how do you know what they wore in the olden days? She goes, on TV shows and books. And I was like, okay, I guess she does know. I just wanted to verify she knew what like old pajamas meant. And she said, when that little girl comes into my room, she goes, I told her that she's supposed to leave me alone, that my mommy said that I can't play at night. She always wants to play at night and always wants to go down in the basement. I don't want to go in the basement. So I kind of thought maybe she's just like revisiting this because we moved into a new house and maybe she really wasn't seeing something before. And maybe, I don't know. I was going back and forth because I was scared. Honestly, it was more because I was scared. And then one night I was like in the falling asleep / I was still awake phase again. And I heard footsteps in the hallway come into the bedroom and stop at the side of the bed. And my back was turned. When you're laying on the bed, your back is turned. So my back was towards the door. And I opened my eyes and I was waiting to hear one of my kids say, Mom. And I didn't hear anything. So I turned and I didn't see anyone there. They weren't the boot sound that I heard before. It was legit little footsteps. I did get the chills and I sat up and I was like, nope, not today. I'm sleeping with the light on. So I flicked the light on and I sat there for a minute and I thought to myself, like, maybe I didn't hear it. Maybe I was sleeping. You talk yourself out of it. So I went back to sleep. A couple days go by and my little one comes to me. She goes, Mommy, that little girl's mad. She went into your room because you wouldn't let me play with her. And I was like, what? I said, how do you know she's mad? She goes, well, she told me. She goes, sometimes she has that scary face and I don't like it. And I said, okay, I think I need to give your uncle a call. I'm going to call your uncle, which is my uncle, but you know. So I ended up calling my uncle and he's a medicine man. And I told him a little bit about what happened. And he goes, her Indian name is the one who sees clearly. So she can see things that we won't see. And if you're supposed to know about it, she'll tell you. And I said, what do I do? And he said, don't always take things negatively. Yes, people come and visit. Sometimes some people are supposed to be there for people. He was explaining to me like the spiritual side. Sometimes people will visit you. Sometimes someone will be mischievous and want you to get up and play. And I was like, that's what's happening to my little one. And he said, this is what I'm going to do. I want you to grab some cedar, and you're going to put the cedar on her bed, like right above her bed. And you're going to not use sage, but cedar the whole house. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. During that time, my oldest had gotten sick. She had gotten a sore throat. She wasn't feeling well, so she had stayed home from school. And I was trying to find some cedar. In Minnesota, in the middle of winter, trying to find cedar was not the easiest thing to find. So I waited a couple days. And during that time, also, my oldest had gotten sick. And she wanted to fall asleep. Her bedroom was upstairs. She wanted to fall asleep on the couch. So then I could be close to her if I needed her, or if she needed me. And she was running a fever on and off. So I wanted to make sure she was okay, made sure she had water, etc. The first night, I stayed outside on the couch with her. And she was up late watching TV, drinking her water, letting me know that she just didn't feel good. She had a little bit of the shivers. She said she had some body aches, so I was worried she was like getting influenza. This was pre-COVID time. We had fallen asleep, and then I just went back into my room. The second night, I just told her, if you need me, just call me, like call for me, and I'll come in there and get you, or to come grab me. Well, all of a sudden I could hear my phone ringing. And you know how on iPhones the FaceTime call rings differently? So I could hear that, and I wake up and I'm like looking at my phone, and she's FaceTiming me. What the heck? And I like yelled to her, I'm like, honey, are you okay? And I didn't hear her. And then I look, and she had texted me, Mom, come here now. I'm so scared. Mom, please hurry. I'm so scared. So I like hurry up and get up, and I like run in there, and she's under the covers on the couch, and I look at her and I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she's, Mom, you'll never believe this. And I'm like, what? What's wrong? She's like, I can't talk about it. I'm so scared. Mom, just put me in the bedroom. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, you don't want to talk about it? And she was literally in tears. Mom, I can't. I'm so scared. So I bring her into my bedroom. I wake up her dad, and I tell him, hey, she's not feeling good. You want to sleep on the couch? And he's, yeah, that's fine. So we wake up in the morning. She was feeling a little better. And I said, I'll have to go bring your sisters to school. Do you want to come with me? And she goes, yes, I'm not staying here alone. And I go, oh, okay. We get in the car. We drop off her sisters at school and at preschool. And I get back in the car, and I'm like, hey, you want to go get Starbucks or something? And she goes, yeah. And I'm like, what's wrong, honey? You look so like upset. Mom, I know I wasn't sleeping. I promise you I wasn't sleeping. But I seen a little girl running around in the living room, but I couldn't hear her footsteps, and I couldn't hear anything that she said. And an older lady was standing by me and was like, put a veil over my face so I wouldn't see the little girl. And I go, what do you mean a veil? She goes, it was like all of a sudden I seen the girl running, and I got scared. I said, running where? She goes, just around the coffee table, like in a circle. And she said, I looked for a second thinking it was my little sister, and I realized that's not my little sister. She had like old pajamas on, and all of a sudden I looked because I could feel someone beside me. And she said there was like an older lady there. And all of a sudden she's like, how she explained it, she goes, I don't know how, but she like put a veil over my face. Then I couldn't see the girl's face because she goes, I was so scared.
The first thing I saw was that girl. She had like long nails, and She kind of looked like me, but she was shorter and she had really long hair. I She was all black. I like see her. It was all blurry. Her everything was black about her, but she looked like a shadow, but more blacker and scarier.